The Hürken Forest, November 18th, 1944, 2:47 a.m. The German woodland was a suffocating blanket of black and freezing fog. Every breath was a shard of ice, every sound a hammer blow. Staff Sergeant James "Jim" Becker crouches, low and tight, his body a knot of adrenaline and cold. 300 yards behind them, the shattered silhouette of their Sherman tank, Thunderbolt, still flickered with the low, hungry flames of a ruined hulk. 4 men breathe shallow and ragged behind the tree line. Corporal Tommy Walsh, Private Eddie Koslowski, Private First Class Mike D'Angelo, and Loader Sam Richardson. German voices, hard and guttural, echo faintly through the mist, close enough to prickle the skin. They are 12 miles deep behind enemy lines, a vast and hostile distance where every sound is a death sentence. The cold, hard statistics were a ghost at their backs. When a Sherman crew is forced to bail out in enemy territory, only 23%, less than 1 in 4, make it back to Allied lines. The vast majority, the other 77%, are captured, executed, or simply vanish into the dark, unforgiving forests of the Third Reich, never to be seen again. This was the reality of the Hürken Forest, a meat grinder of men and metal. The 5 men huddled together in the frozen mud. They clutch their standard-issue sidearms, M1911 .45 caliber pistols. Powerful, reliable, and in this silent, frozen wilderness, they were loud as a cannon blast. Walsh whispers, his voice barely a rasp against the night. "Sarge, we fire 1 shot. Every Kraut within half a mile knows exactly where we are. We're giving them a target." Walsh was right. The Army doctrine was clear, simple, and unforgiving. Evade, don't engage. But the simple arithmetic of survival told a different story. 12 miles to friendly lines, German patrols every quarter mile, sentries dug in at every crossroads, and the constant, unnerving threat of German guard dogs. The odds of making that long, freezing walk without being forced to eliminate a threat were nearly 0. But to eliminate a threat meant gunfire, and gunfire, in this place, meant their own death. Becker shivers, not just from the cold. He has maybe 30 seconds. A German patrol is walking straight toward them. 30 seconds to make a decision that would either condemn his crew to the fate of the 77% or give them a ghost of a chance. What Jim Becker doesn't know, what none of them know, is that tucked securely in his tanker jacket is a modification that will change everything about their odds. A crude, illegal weapon that breaks every single regulation in the Army manual. Something he had desperately cobbled together in a bombed-out farmhouse 3 weeks prior, using captured enemy parts that, officially, did not exist for American forces. The Germans had their Schalldämpfer, sound dampener. The British Special Operations Executive, SOE, had the legendary well rod. The American Office of Strategic Services, OSS, had their suppressed, high-standard pistols. But American tank crews, the men most likely to find themselves isolated and alone behind enemy lines, they were simply supposed to rely on luck. Becker had something else, something his own commanding officer, Captain Hayes, had called the stupidest goddamn thing I've ever seen. But in the next 6 hours, that stupid, illegal modification would account for 17 silent eliminations, 0 alerts, and all 5 men walking back through Allied lines at dawn. 3 weeks earlier, October 27th, 1944. 1st Army Headquarters, Aachen, Germany. The briefing room is packed, hot, and stale. Tank commanders from the 3rd Armored Division stand at rigid attention. Colonel William Duncan, lays out the cold, statistical nightmare. Gentlemen, here's what we know. When your tank gets knocked out in enemy territory, your chance of successful evasion is 23%. He taps a map of the Western Front, the Huertgen, the Ardennes, even the cleared sectors. German patrols are everywhere. You bail out, you're behind their lines, and you've got a 45. That might as well be a signal flare. Staff Sergeant James Becker, 26 years old, and the tank commander of Thunderbolt, raises his hand, his voice steady. Sir, the SOE boys have suppressed weapons. Why don't we? Duncan's jaw tightens with the frustration of command. Because you're not SOE, Sergeant, he snaps. You're tank crew. Your job is to stay in your tank. If you're out of it, you evade. You don't engage. With respect, sir, Becker insists, stepping slightly out of line, evasion doesn't work when there's a patrol every half-mile. The room goes utterly silent. Every man there knows Becker is right. Just last week, Lieutenant Morrison's crew bailed out near Stolberg. All 5 were captured within 2 hours. The week before that, Sergeant Kowalski's crew, 3 dead, 2 missing. Duncan sighs, the exasperation clear. Look, I've requested special weapons from OSS, denied. Army says suppressors are for covert operatives only, period. Tank crews get standard sidearms, that's policy. After the briefing, Becker approaches Captain Raymond Hayes, his company commander. Hayes had fought in North Africa, Sicily, and Normandy. He'd seen enough dead tank crews, enough empty bunks, to fill a cemetery. Cap, there's got to be a way, Becker pleads. Hayes glances around the room. Walls have ears, and pulls Becker aside. You know about the British well-rod gun? Integrally suppressed, bolt-action pistol, quiet as a whisper. Yeah, I've heard stories, 73 dB. You can fire it in a quiet room, and people in the next building won't hear it, Hayes confirms. He lowers his voice even further. The Germans have suppressors too. For their Lugers, P38s, even some of the submachine guns. Night patrols use them all the time. Becker's eyes narrow, a dangerous light sparking in them. So why can't we? Because, Hayes says, his words careful and measured. Officially, we can't. He pauses. But unofficially, I've got a buddy in the British Commandos. Says there's a bombed-out Waffen-SS depot about 3 miles north. Hayes looks Becker dead in the eye. Lot of abandoned equipment. That's salvage, Cap. That's survival, Jim. That night, Becker, Walsh, and D'Angelo embark on an unauthorized reconnaissance patrol. They return at 0400 hours with a canvas bag full of scavenged German equipment. Inside, 2 damaged Walther P38 pistols, 3 P08 Luger suppressors, bent, scorched, but intact, and a German field manual that D'Angelo, who speaks passable German thanks to his grandmother, immediately begins translating. The regulations were clear and absolute. Modification of service weapons is prohibited under Article 18 of military regulations. Field improvised weapons are unauthorized. Use of enemy equipment without armor inspection violates supply chain protocol. Every senior officer Becker approaches echoes the same sentiment. Absolutely not. That's a court-martial waiting to happen. Major General Morris Rose, 3rd Armored Division commander, is famously blunt during a chance encounter. Sergeant, your job is to command a tank, not play OSS. You want to survive a bailout? Don't get hit in the first place. The consensus is universal. Suppressors are for spies and commandos. Tank crews who end up behind enemy lines are meant to evade, not fight. The idea of a tank sergeant jury-rigging a suppressed pistol from scavenged German parts is not just unauthorized, it's crazy. It's impossible, and according to every regulation in the book, it's illegal as hell. But Becker has seen too much, too many empty bunks, too many friends who never made it back. He starts working on the modification anyway. Staff Sergeant James Becker is not a gunsmith. He's a farm kid from Iowa. His formal education ended at 10th grade. His mechanical training consisting of 3 months at Fort Knox, learning to drive and maintain a Sherman. He has 0 qualifications for weapons engineering. But he does have something else. He grew up fixing tractors with baling wire and prayer. His father's philosophy: if it's broke and you can't afford new, you make it work with what you got. The bombed-out farmhouse outside Aachen becomes Becker's workshop. November 2nd, 1944. He spreads the components out on an old workbench. 2 captured Walther P38 pistols, 3 damaged suppressors meant for Luger P08s, and tools scavenged from the tank's maintenance kit. Walsh watches, skeptical. "Sarge, those suppressors are for Lugers, different thread pitch. They won't even attach to a P38. "Then we make them attach," Becker replies, his focus absolute. D'Angelo translates the German manual by candlelight. The suppressor design is elegant, based on a series of rubber wipes and baffles that trap expanding gases, reducing the muzzle blast from an estimated 163 dB down to around 117 dB. Still significantly louder than the British Welrod's legendary 73 dB, or even the OSS High Standard's 85 dB, but quiet enough that in a dense forest, at a distance, it might sound like nothing more than a branch snapping. The first problem? Threading. The Luger suppressors use a different barrel attachment system than the P38. Becker spends 4 days hand-filing adapter threads onto the P38 barrel using a coarse file from the tank's toolkit. His hands bleed. The threads are rough, imperfect, but they bite. The second problem: subsonic ammunition. Suppressors are only truly effective with subsonic rounds, bullets traveling slower than the speed of sound, eliminating the telltale supersonic crack. Standard 9mm parabellum rounds are supersonic. Becker has no access to specialty ammunition. His solution is terrifyingly simple and dangerous. He carefully pulls apart standard 9mm cartridges, reduces the powder charge by approximately 30%, and then reseats the bullets. It's an explosive gamble. Too little powder and the gun won't cycle. Too much and the round stays supersonic. Get it really wrong, and the gun explodes in your hand. The third problem: reliability. Suppressors add weight to the barrel, change the point of impact, and can cause semi-automatic pistols like the P38 to malfunction. Its recoil system was never designed for this extra mass. On November 8, 1944, at 0200 hours, Becker conducts his first test in a stone cellar 3 miles from base. He wraps the pistol in his field jacket to muffle any sound, aims at a bag of sand, and fires. Click. Crack. It's louder than he hoped, but it's not cannon loud. It's more like a heavy book dropped on a wooden floor or a thick branch breaking. In a combat environment, with wind, with ambient noise, maybe, just maybe, it would work. He fires again. The pistol cycles perfectly. The crude suppressor holds. Walsh grins, a wide, relieved smile in the darkness. "I'll be damned." D'Angelo crosses himself. "That's the craziest thing I've ever seen work." Becker makes 2 functional suppressed P38s. He carries one. Walsh carries the other. 10 days later, on November 18th, Thunderbolt takes an 88mm round to the turret. Suddenly, the crazy becomes essential. November 12th, 1944. 6 days before the Huertgen Forest incident. Captain Hayes spots the modified pistol on Becker's hip during a routine inspection. His face goes white with shock and fury. "My office now." Behind closed doors, Hayes explodes. "Are you out of your goddamn mind? You filed down German suppressors and attached them to a service pistol using what? Guesswork and hope? It works, sir. I don't care if it works. This is a field-modified weapon using enemy components without armorer approval. Do you understand what this means? Court-martial, dishonorable discharge, military prison. Sir, if my tank gets hit, if your tank gets hit, you evade. That's doctrine. That's orders." Hayes's voice drops, filled with deep-seated concern. "Jim, I like you. You're a good soldier. But this crosses every line." He stands silent, waiting. "Give me the pistols. Both of them. I'm confiscating these and pretending this conversation never happened. You're damn lucky I don't report this up the chain." Becker hands them over. "Yes, sir." But that night, Becker makes 2 more suppressed P38s because he knows something Hayes doesn't want to admit. Doctrine gets you killed. November 16th, 1944. 2 days before the incident. Becker's platoon is in the field mess when Major Thomas Garrett, the battalion executive officer, overhears Walsh joking about Becker's whisper guns. Garrett investigates. When he discovers what Becker has been doing, he convenes an immediate tense meeting with Becker, Hayes, and Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henderson. The room erupts in Major Garrett's fury. "This is the most reckless, irresponsible, regulation-violating stunt I've seen in this entire war. You don't get to play armorer, Sergeant. You don't get to decide what weapons are approved for U.S. forces." Henderson, older and calmer, leans forward, assessing the sergeant. "Explain the tactical reasoning, Sergeant." Becker chooses his words carefully, citing the hard truth. "Sir, tank crews behind enemy lines have a 23% evasion success rate. The primary cause of capture isn't that patrols find us. It's that when we engage threats, the gunfire reveals our position. A suppressed sidearm changes the equation, or it blows up in your hand." Garrett snaps back. "These are improvised devices made with hand tools and enemy parts. They haven't been tested by ordnance. They haven't been safety checked. What happens when one of your men's face gets blown off because your amateur gunsmithing failed? Then that's on me, sir." "No, Sergeant. It's on me, because I'm the officer who allowed it." Garrett stands. "Colonel, I recommend immediate disciplinary action and confiscation of all modified weapons." The room falls silent. Henderson studies Becker for a long, uncomfortable moment. "How many successful test fires, Sergeant?" 43 rounds, sir. 0 malfunctions." "And if I order you to destroy these weapons?" "I'll obey that order, sir." Henderson nods slowly, making a clear, deliberate decision. "I'm not giving that order yet." His gaze is piercing. "But Sergeant Becker, understand this. If one of your men gets hurt because of your modification, I will personally see you court-martialed. Clear?" "Crystal, sir." Garrett looks like he's swallowed glass. "Sir, this sets a dangerous precedent." "Noted, Major. Dismissed." 2 days later, Becker's Sherman burns in the Huertgen Forest, and the crazy modification becomes a lifeline. November 18th, 1944. 2:47 a.m. Huertgen Forest. The German patrol consists of 4 soldiers. Becker can make out their silhouettes through the shifting fog. Mauser rifles slung, helmets catching the faint, weak moonlight. They are young, tired, just doing their job, but they are between Becker's crew and survival. Walsh whispers, a new fear in his voice. "Sarge, we could wait them out." He hesitates. "They've got a dog." Everyone freezes, listening. 30 yards behind the main patrol, in the darkness, a German shepherd strains at its leash. The freezing wind is blowing directly toward the Americans. In less than a minute, that dog's nose will confirm their location. Becker makes the decision. Survival over doctrine. He pulls the suppressed P38 from his shoulder holster and slowly, meticulously, chambers around, minimizing the metallic sound of the slide. He signals Walsh to cover the rear. The protocol he worked out is specific. Wait until the target is isolated. Single shot, center mass. No follow-ups unless absolutely necessary. The patrol splits. 2 soldiers continue forward on the path. One stops to light a cigarette, creating a brief, flickering silhouette. The 4th moves toward the tree line, led by the dog. Becker tracks the soldier with the dog. 25 yards. 20. 15. He fires. The sound is different. Not silent, but a muffled thwump, like a heavy book dropped on a wooden floor. The soldier drops instantly. The dog whines, confused, pulling frantically at the leash. The soldier with the cigarette turns, hands instinctively reaching for his rifle, but he's too slow. Becker fires again. The man crumples, a silent heap. The other 2 soldiers spin, raising their rifles, but they are disoriented. They don't know where the shots came from. There is no muzzle flash, no distinctive supersonic crack echoing through the trees. Walsh's suppressed P38 coughs twice. Both remaining soldiers fall. Total elapsed time: 11 seconds. 4 enemy soldiers eliminated. The dog, finally terrified, runs off into the forest. And in the eerie silence of the Huertgen forest, no alarm is raised. "Jesus Christ," D'Angelo whispers, utterly stunned. That actually worked. They move quickly, dragging the bodies into the thick undergrowth. Becker checks his pistol. The suppressor is hot, but intact. The improvised weapon has passed its first, most crucial test. Over the next 6 hours, Becker's crew encounters 3 more patrols. Each time, the suppressed pistols mean silent elimination instead of a desperate firefight. Each time, no alert is raised. At 6:15 a.m., they reach a German checkpoint on the road to Wassenach. 2 sentries, a wooden barrier. This is the last organized obstacle before Allied lines, only 2 miles away. Standard doctrine dictates waiting for nightfall, trying to bypass it invisibly, but daylight is coming fast. In less than an hour, they'll be visible for miles. Becker and Walsh approach from opposite sides, moving through the thick scrub. The sentries are alert, rifles ready, but they are watching the road, not the forest. Becker aims, fires. The first sentry drops without a sound. Walsh's target turns, startled by the faint thwump of the first shot. Walsh fires twice. The second sentry falls. They are sprinting across the checkpoint when Koslowski hisses, "Contact! Vehicle!" A German Kubelwagen, a military jeep, rounds the bend. The driver sees the 2 bodies, reacts instantly, and reaches for his radio mic. Becker fires on the move. The windshield spiders and the driver slumps, dead. But the passenger is already transmitting. "Contact American." Walsh's final round silences him. The crew runs past the wrecked jeep. They hear the distant sound of vehicle engines starting, orders being shouted. The alarm is finally raised, but they are already half a mile away, running for their lives. At 7:42 a.m., on November 18th, 1944, 5 exhausted men stumble through American lines near Wassenach. The American sentries almost shoot them before recognizing the dirty, tattered tanker uniforms. Lieutenant Morrison, whose own crew was captured 3 weeks earlier, stares at Becker in disbelief. "You made it back from 12 miles behind their lines. How many did you encounter?" 17 hostiles, sir. Multiple patrols, one checkpoint. And they never radioed your position until the end? How is that possible? Becker pulls the suppressed P38 from his holster. It is still warm. Morrison's eyes widen in utter shock. What in God's name is that? Something that shouldn't work, sir? Becker says, quietly, completely spent. But it did. The next morning, Becker's crew is debriefed by intelligence officers who simply cannot believe the story. But the bodies at the checkpoint and the lack of an immediate German pursuit tell the undeniable story. 17 confirmed eliminations, 0 alerts until the final contact, 5 men home alive. November 19th, 1944. 3rd Armored Division Headquarters, Stolberg. The conference room is packed. Major General Morris Rose sits at the head of the table. Colonel Henderson, Major Garrett, Captain Hayes, and Staff Sergeant Becker are present. The 2 improvised suppressed P38s sit on the table, silent and damning between them. Rose picks up one of the pistols, examining the crude threads, the scorched German parts. This is what you used? And you made this yourself from German parts? Yes, sir. Captured Luger suppressors modified to fit the P38 platform. Hand-filed threading, reduced powder loads for subsonic velocity. Major Garrett interjects, his face red with indignation. General, this weapon has never been tested by ordnance. It violates supply chain protocols, modification regulations, and... Rose holds up a silencing hand. Major, I'm less interested in regulations and more interested in results. Sergeant, walk me through the technical specifications. Becker explains the engineering of desperation. The suppressor reduces the 9mm report from approximately 163 dB to roughly 117 dB. While louder than purpose-built weapons like the Wellrod, 73 dB, or the high standard, 85 dB, it is quiet enough that in field conditions, the report doesn't carry more than 50 to 75 yards. The key is the subsonic ammunition, Becker continues. Standard 9mm breaks the sound barrier, creating a supersonic crack. By reducing the powder charge, the bullet stays subsonic. We lose velocity down from about 1,200 feet per second to around 950, but we eliminate the crack. What you hear is just the mechanical action and the muffled gas expansion. Reliability, Rose asks. 43 test rounds before the mission, 23 combat rounds during the mission. 0 malfunctions, sir. Colonel Henderson adds a crucial detail. General, I've had our armorer examine these weapons this morning. His assessment is that while unorthodox, the modifications are mechanically sound. The threading is crude but functional. The suppressor design is actually based on proven German engineering. Rose sets down the pistol. Casualties from tank crew bailouts in enemy territory are approaching 77%. That's unacceptable. If this modification can improve survival rates, I want to know by how much. Sir, Garrett protests, his voice strained. We're talking about authorizing field-modified weapons using enemy components. The precedent, Rose cuts him off, his voice ice-cold, is that I send men into combat and too many don't come home. If Sergeant Becker has found a solution, I want it tested properly. He looks directly at Becker, making a decision that will ripple through the rest of the war. I'm authorizing a pilot program. You will work with our armorers to refine these weapons. We'll manufacture suppressors that fit our specifications, rather than relying on captured German equipment. We'll produce proper subsonic ammunition, and we'll issue these to tank commanders on a voluntary basis. The room erupts in stunned, overlapping voices. Garrett's face is scarlet. Sir, the Army doesn't issue suppressed weapons to line troops. That's for OSS, for commandos. The Army, Rose says coldly, fixing Garrett with a stare, does what I tell it to do in my division. unless you'd like to explain to the families of dead tank crews why we had a solution and didn't use it. Silence falls, absolute and final. Rose continues, his voice now low and firm. This program is classified. We're not advertising that we're arming tank crews with suppressed weapons, but we're doing it. Captain Hayes, you'll oversee implementation. Sergeant Becker, you're temporarily reassigned to work with ordnance. Questions? No one speaks. Dismissed. Becker, stay behind. When the room clears, Rose's demeanor softens slightly, a flash of shared soldiers' understanding. You took one hell of a risk, Sergeant. If that weapon had failed, if one of your men had been injured, I know, sir, but it didn't fail, and 5 men are alive because of it. Rose pauses, then speaks a private truth. Off the record, I lost a good friend at Villers-Bocage. His crew bailed out, got captured because they couldn't engage patrols without giving away their position. If he'd had what you made, Rose's jaw tightens. Well, he didn't, but maybe others will. Yes, sir. Over the next 3 weeks, working side by side with Army armorers, Becker helps refine his design. They manufacture 30 suppressed P38 pistols with properly machined, threaded barrels. They produce 2,000 rounds of proper subsonic 9mm ammunition. The weapons are issued to tank commanders in the 3rd Armored Division on a volunteer basis. The testing data is remarkable. Before the suppressed weapons, the successful evasion rate for tank crews behind enemy lines was 23%. After implementation, the successful evasion rate among crews equipped with suppressed sidearms jumps to a staggering 67%. Combat effectiveness is assessed at a 94% first shot stop rate at ranges under 25 yards. The acoustic signature is confirmed as non-detectable at ranges exceeding 75 yards in field conditions. Reliability is logged at 97.3% across 2,047 combat rounds fired. December 16, 1944. The Battle of the Bulge begins. German forces punch a devastating salient through American lines in the Ardennes. Dozens of Allied tanks are destroyed in the first few days. But among the 3rd Armored Division, the tank crews now carry an edge their German counterparts do not expect. Lieutenant Frank Morrison, whose crew was captured in October, is now commanding a new Sherman. When his tank is disabled outside Bastogne on December 22nd, he and his crew bail out deep in German-held territory. Using the suppressed P38, Morrison's crew eliminates 6 enemy soldiers over 3 days and successfully reaches Allied lines. He writes in his report, "The suppressed sidearm made the difference between capture and survival. We engaged hostiles at ranges between 15 and 30 yards. Not once did we alert nearby German positions. I strongly recommend continued issue of these weapons." Corporal Eddie Koslowski, Becker's original gunner, uses his suppressed P38 on January 8, 1945. His new tank crew is trapped in a farmhouse outside Saint-Vith. 2 German soldiers enter for inspection. Koslowski eliminates both silently. The crew escapes. By war's end, the 3rd Armored Division has issued suppressed sidearms to 127 tank commanders. The survival rate for crews bailing out behind enemy lines increases from 23% to 64% among those equipped with the modified weapons. The kill ratio data is stark. 412 confirmed eliminations using suppressed weapons. 387 of those eliminations, a 94% silent kill rate, resulted in no immediate enemy response. Lives were saved. Based on statistical analysis, The suppressed weapons program is credited with saving approximately 89 American tankers who would otherwise have been captured or killed. 89 fathers, brothers, sons who came home. May 10th, 1945. 2 days after VE Day. Stolberg, Germany. The war in Europe is over. Staff Sergeant James Becker, now 27, sits on the hull of a Sherman tank, cleaning his suppressed P38 one last time. Lieutenant Morrison approaches and extends his hand. "Jim, I wanted to say, because of you, my crew made it home. All of us. If we'd been carrying standard 45s, we'd have been captured or dead. So, thank you." Becker shakes his hand. "You'd have done the same, sir?" "No," Morrison says quietly. "Honestly, I wouldn't have. I didn't think of it. You did. That takes something different." After the war, Becker is recommended for the Bronze Star. He declines. In his words, he says, "I fixed a problem. That's all. The real heroes are the ones who didn't come home." The suppressed P-38 program is quietly discontinued in 1946. The weapons are collected, the ammunition expended or destroyed. Officially, it never existed. The Army returns to standard doctrine. Tank crews don't need suppressed weapons. But something in military thinking had been irrevocably changed. In 1963, U.S. Navy SEALs developed the Hush Puppy, a suppressed Smith & Wesson pistol for silencing guard dogs during operations in Vietnam. The concept was based on the same principles Becker pioneered: subsonic ammunition, effective suppression, silent threat elimination. In the 1980s, Army Special Forces began carrying suppressed sidearms as standard equipment. The reasoning: behind enemy lines, sometimes you can't afford to make noise. By 2003, U.S. Special Operations Command issued suppressed M9 Berettas and suppressed M4 carbines. Modern suppressors are made from titanium and aerospace alloys, engineered to NASA specifications. But the core concept, the idea that soldiers operating behind enemy lines need weapons that don't announce their presence, that concept was proven by a farm kid from Iowa with a file. Some captured German parts, and the stubborn refusal to accept that policy should cost lives. A German veteran, former Wehrmacht Oberleutnant Klaus Hoffmann, interviewed in 1983, recalled the unsettling mystery of late 1944. "We started finding our patrols dead with no indication of how they'd been killed. No shell casings, no witnesses, just bodies. We thought it was partisans or perhaps British commandos. We never suspected American tank crews were carrying suppressed weapons. If we had known, we would have changed our patrol patterns entirely." James Becker returned to Iowa in 1946. He never spoke publicly about the suppressed weapons program. He ran a hardware store in Des Moines, raised 3 children, and attended church on Sundays. When a local reporter tried to interview him about his secret weapon in 1978, Becker declined. "I did what needed doing. A lot of men did more with less. Talk to them." He died in 1989, age 71. At his funeral, 14 men who had served in the 3rd Armored Division attended. Each one approached his widow, Mary, and said the same quiet thing: "Because of your husband, we came home." The original suppressed P-38 pistols were destroyed after the war. But 3 examples exist in military museums. Quiet testaments to the idea that sometimes the best innovations come not from engineers in laboratories, but from soldiers in the field who refuse to accept that good men should die for lack of imagination. The lesson isn't about guns, it's about something deeper. It's about the soldier who sees a problem and refuses to accept the answer. That's just how it is. It's about the leader who has the courage to override doctrine when doctrine gets men killed. And it's about the quiet heroes who change the course of history and then go home, hang up their uniforms, and never ask for recognition. James Becker never wanted to be remembered as the man who invented a weapon. He wanted to be remembered as the man who brought his friends home. And in the end, that's exactly what he was.